All right, guys. So video one is going to be me breaking down the bloodlines behind our dogs. Project Justable is built on transparency and excitement for, moving this breed forward. And I say breed, but in reality, it's a type of dog. If you guys have done your research and you've talked to people that are open to, educating you, you will understand that the XL and its genealogy has some gray area, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about other bloodlines and who did what and any of that. What I would like to inform everyone on is what is behind our dogs. So we have been lucky enough to have good conversations with old school breeders that have been doing this a long time, a lot longer than we have. And it's a really good feeling when you can talk to a breeder that's willing to share little bits of truth with you and maybe explain why they went the way they did in that time. But honestly, the only thing that really matters to us is the truth. So we felt like starting this whole process and these videos off with what makes up our dogs would be the best place to start. So I think one of the most important concepts in breeding is having a vision of where you want to go, but also the understanding of where your dogs come from and where they've been. So what we're going to do right now is kind of break down our pedigree of Bougie's Jedi. That's champion Jedi. He champed out in one show. Really proud of this dog. And his pedigree is obviously going to be the same as all of his siblings. And if you don't know, we took his sister, direct litter mate, Bougie's Naboo, to Bulky Built's Rocky, and that is step one of this Justable project. So the same, things we talk about here and explaining some dogs is going to obviously carry over to her as well. But yeah, let's kind of get started here. So if you look at the pedigree, straight up, you're going to see immediately Camino's dad, Big Baller's Johnny Bags of Bougie Bullies. We own Johnny and couldn't be happier with our investment that we made in him. When you think about Johnny, you need to think about the American Bulldog influence. And why is that important? American Bulldogs, I think that's where you get a lot of your head to body ratio, extreme size. They do have health. They have functionality. There's a lot of really, really good attributes about the American Bulldog. That's something that I'm going to talk more about with more experienced breeders that have used those type of dogs in their programs. But for now, what I want you guys to understand is that this is where you're going to see a heavy AMB American Bulldog influence from Johnny. I can tell you that after our research and some conversations that Johnny is a line-bred result from two bear offsprings. I'll attach some bear photos so you guys can see. And as you can see, Bear had a gigantic head. I know from personal research that his head was well over, I believe, 30 inches. Don't quote me on that, but it is a true massive head. There's a lot of talk about dogs' head sizes, and I think that if the photos look like this, there's a reason that they do, and that's because you can't fake it. So everything that I've heard about Bear aligns, and you can see that really well in Johnny. Johnny had a phenomenal head for his body size, his type of head. We can see the influence of Bear really, clear as day. If you look at the cheeks, the way the eye set is, all the way down to the snout and the boxiness of the snout all the way through. That's a really important attribute of the American Bulldog influence that we love to see, because one thing that we don't want to do with this Justable project, and we've tried to stay away from with our breeding program, is that snipey, snippy snout. I think that the Terrier influence is going to be there all the time, but if we can kind of mask that the best we can in utilizing the American Bulldog snout, we're going to do that. So if you look at the pictures of Bear that I've attached and you look at Johnny, you guys can see the similarities there. And that's something that we really, really were happy to talk about. And I know that it's something that some people haven't. And I'm not here to talk about any of what other people have done. But for us, what makes up Johnny is really, really important to us in moving forward. So we're going to go ahead and look at Johnny, and then going to go right over here to Lilo. If you look at Lilo, you can automatically see a really good front frame. You see Super Bowl and Jessica Rabbit, a very, very, very terrier face, very terrier type. And terrier doesn't mean anything bad. And when I'm talking about terrier, what I'm talking about is clean feet, really good straight front, and a little bit of length to the snout. Now, just like I was talking about the boxiness of the snout of Johnny and of American Bulldogs, I actually don't mind a little bit of length in the snout. And the reason for that is I think you get a little bit of a better functioning dog. You see a little bit better breathing. And the last thing that we want to do is create a dog that's a mutant but can't breathe and can't do anything. So I think that their snouts of this breeding were really, really important. Now, talking about bulldog and influence and understanding, if you look at Jessica Rabbit, you could tell that this dog has a little bit of bulldog influence when you look back at her pedigree. And you can't see it here now, but there is another bulldog influence. So I'm going to put BD for bulldog so that you guys know exactly what I'm talking about here. And do your own research into what I'm saying, because it is true. If you look at or Jessica Rabbit's pedigree, you will see dogs in her pedigree that have heavily bulldog influence features, from the shapes of their face, the snouts. And although that she does maybe have a little more of a terrier face, we did believe that adding that American bulldog flair from Johnny could hit on some of the bulldog flair that you see in Jessica Rabbit. So I want you guys to look at that, and that's where you're going to see a lot of the Merle influence be bulldog, because that's how we got Merle into the XLs. And so when you look at Jessica Rabbit, think a little bit of bulldog influence on the back end, and that's also, that same Merle combination is also going to apply over here to Jumanji. So we're going to look at the bulldog influence across the board here. Right now, this is where it gets kind of excited for us to talk about, because right now you can see that we have basically done Lilo's line has a little bit of bulldog influence. Johnny's line has a little bit of bulldog influence. Jumanji's line has a little bit of bulldog influence in it as well. So the final step in this is, if we look at Bossy's Bliss, Embark has shown us that there are a couple different dogs in the background of this dog. And what would that be? That would be Boerboel. So we're going to go B, and then also more American Bulldog. So as you can tell right now, through all the green lines, there is a heavy influence of Bulldog in all of these dogs. It doesn't matter to me how far back it goes, because I do believe, my own personal theory is that you can tap into blood that's a little further back than 3 generations. That's just my belief. I'm not here to, coach anybody or tell you that it does or it doesn't, but from what we have seen, we are going to believe that we can tap into that small, little distinct features a little further back than 3 generations. So as you can tell across the board, Jedi has a heavy influence of bulldogs of all types in his pedigree. And I think that's really important to understand when you look at this dog, and you also look at some of the productions that we have through our first phase 1 of Justable. So I think if you look at this pedigree, you can obviously see that there's, a little more than meets the eye. And I hope this gives you a little bit more understanding into why we're breaking these things down, so that you can see exactly where we're moving forward. Remember the name Bear. I'm going to go full circle moment here for people that are still following. If you look at Johnny, and we know that he has the American Bulldog flair from Bear, Rocky also has Bear in his pedigree. So there's a couple people that ask me, why did we choose Rocky? Well, in all reality, Rocky in his phenotype and his genotype aligned almost perfectly with our girl Camino. I'm going to attach some photos and maybe some videos here so you can see what I'm talking about. These dogs, from my eyes, look like they could be half siblings or potentially even litter mates if you look at the body in particular. And so I think that when we chose Rocky, and I flew down to Nationals to see Rocky, everything I wanted to see, I saw in that dog. And coming from a place of wanting to line breed off of our Camino stuff, Rocky was a clear answer to the, a little piece of the puzzle that we were missing. And so looking at these videos, I hope that you guys can kind of see that, and then just understanding, hey, we're really tapping into the bulldog that's behind these dogs. And I think that's something that excites us, and it's something that we do want to talk about. And like I said, in future, videos and stuff, we'll break down a little bit more in depth of what we like to see out of the American Bulldog, what we need to kind of avoid. And that's going to go the same way from the Boerboels and such about what is in these dogs. So this is not just a breakdown just to say, hey, cool, look at what's behind here. We're going to go a little more in depth about this and kind of really take the time to explain to you guys, the do's and don'ts from breeders that we trust, and why we chose the specific dogs that we did, even though they carry that blood, to move forward with. So if you followed along, thank you. I hope this kind of has a little bit of clarity to it, and hopefully the videos that you guys are liking. If you have any questions, again, feel free to comment, send me a message about what we're seeing in these dogs, in these pedigrees, and let's make some more sense of it and kind of keep a transparent conversation going forward. And thanks again for checking us out.